What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Mets Central podcast. And the New York Mets complete their homestand. Unfortunately, couldn't end up sweeping the entire thing, but they end up going 2-1 against the Miami Marlins after sweeping the Toronto Blue Jays. The offense, Jekyll and Hyde yet again, great in game two, but for the most part, Jekyll and Hyde, a lot of concerns to maybe be had in terms of that. And then, of course, just the pitching being showing a little more cracks in the armor, unfortunately, here. As yeah, now they'll head out to Sacramento to play the A's. But we're gonna recap that series against the Marlins, talk about the series coming up against the A's, all that stuff. Before we do, leave a like on your way into the show, or if you're watching on replay, subscribe. If you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans, turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live. And if you are in the live chat, we will try to get to your comments, questions, whatever it may be, just as long as it's related to the topic. If not, I will have to either ignore it or I will, bring it up later in the show and we could bring that up in a topic. But yeah, we got a lot to get into today. Matt, how are we feeling as the Mets are now 8-4 on the season? And again, sucks they couldn't sweep the homestand, but at least successful for the most part in terms of the results, going 5-1.
It was definitely a successful homestand. You have 6 games, three against the Blue Jays, three against the Marlins, and you end up going 5-1. It is successful. I mean, after they swept the Blue Jays, we said that we would have loved them to sweep the Miami Marlins. Unfortunate that last game, it was a deserved loss, especially with you going. I'm pretty sure it was either the fifth or sixth inning where they were getting no hit off Max Meyer. They were eventually able to break through, but the pitching just couldn't really hold up that game. But I mean, yeah, overall, 5-1 homestand, that's something you take, especially early on the season. And yeah, I mean, look, if you told me before the season that, 4 series in and 12 games in that the Mets would be 8-4, I would have gladly, shaken your hand and taken that record. There are definitely some small concerns here or there. Definitely, I think majority of the concern is with the lineup and not particularly the top guys in the lineup, because we know those guys, the Francisco Lindors, the Juan Soto's, the Pete Alonso's, those guys are going to produce. And so far through the start of the season, they have looked really good. It's more though the bottom of the lineup, and I'm sure we'll get into that more as we get through the episode.
Yeah, so there's just definitely a lot to get into. So let's start by talking about game one that occurred where the offense kind of did dry up, similarly to what we were talking about here. And in terms of the pitching matchup, it was Kodai Senga pitching at Citi Field versus uh, Belozo, whatever his name is, because I think that was where Sandy was supposed to start, but he did not end up making the start due to being on the paternity list. But yeah, like I said, the offense definitely dried up. Kodai Senga faced trouble a little bit early, as he typically does, settled down. The Mets did their typical thing where they were getting base runners on in that bottom of the first inning, just couldn't get the big hit. They got a leadoff hit in the second inning. Taylor got caught stealing. And then they finally came through in the third inning where Francisco Lindor would hit a single. Juan Soto gets the double to drive the run in. And then Mark Vientos also could have had a base hit there. But unfortunately, Griffin Conine and the Marlins in general, they are not a great team, but credit to them with the way they played defensively this series. They had a lot of miscues in the second game, but for the most part, I should say, they were on point with the way they played defensively. So I do have to give them a little bit of credit there. And Kodai Senga really settled down after that first inning. Like I said, coasted through. Maybe could have got another inning out of him, but unfortunately, with the pitch limit, they had to cut him short after 5 innings. You would see Danny Young rebound from his brutal outing. The sixth inning, the Mets wasted a leadoff base runner as well. Jose Budo came in, gave some solid work. The Mets would not score again until the eighth inning, where after Vientos walked, Tyrone Taylor would get a single to drive him in and make it 2-0. And Jose Siri pitch ran for him, I should say, on that one. And then Ryan Stanek would shut the door. So overall, again, a little bit of the same that we've seen. I think the biggest positive, which we're going to talk about in terms of the series as a whole, Francisco Lindor's day was awesome. Juan Soto with a 2-hit day. Pete Alonso. It's just when you look at the bottom of that lineup outside of Tyrone Taylor, just fat goose eggs in the hit column. I mean, Mark Vientos had 3 walks, so it's hard to kill him there. But, just no hits really from the rest of the lineup at all is very disturbing. The pitching was great that game, but really it comes down to the offense here, where you do have a lot of questions, especially from a game like that where they were just wasting the base runners.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the biggest thing that I could take away from this homestand is really the top of the order guys have really found their groove. And I mean, Francisco Lindor, there was some concerns, and this was mostly the people that just tend to really kind of overreact to everything and say like, "Oh, Lindor's not a really good player," even though he just came off an MVP caliber season. And yeah, there were listen, did he start off slow in Houston and Miami? Sure, but we know that Lindor just this is what he does. And he came home, the fans got behind him, were singing "My Girl," and he really found his groove in this series. I mean, I think I saw before the final game of the homestand, the final game against Miami. He was hitting like 300 or something like that on the homestand so far. So he's really turned it around. Obviously, we'll get to game two. He had that really big home run to start him off in the first inning. But yeah, solid game from him. He went 3 for 4. Juan Soto, even though WF fans already starting their narrative that Juan Soto was pressing, even though the guy has an 800 has an 864 OPS, but apparently that's pressing. Sure. Okay. Whatever. Pete Alonso, he continued his really good start to the season. Probably his best game came in the second game of the series, which, like I said, we'll get to. Nimmo had a weird series. I mean, obviously didn't have the greatest game in the first game. He went 0 for 4. Better in the second game. Didn't have a great third game either. Vientos, I thought, continuing off the Blue Jays series where he looked better. I thought he made another big stride in this series as well. Solid in the field again, and had a lot of really good at bats. I know the hits right now aren't showing up, and the home runs aren't showing up as well, like what we saw last year. But in terms of just how he's going about each at bat and just taking pitches, fouling off pitches, staying in the at bat, he had also had a lot of hard hit outs this series as well, and the first game as well, which we're talking about right now. He should have had a hit, but Griffin Conine just made a really good play out in left field, a nice diving play. But yeah, as you mentioned, the bottom of the order is just a lot of them are unplayable right now. And I mean, we'll get to Brett Beatty this episode because again, just another series where he looks lost at the plate and lost in the field as well. And it's pretty much, I mean, with Jeff McNeil now looking like he's going to start his rehab assignment down in Port St. Lucie this week, it really is a matter of time just before Brett Beatty gets cut loose by this organization because you can't continue to play this guy. He's just a lost cause. Like I said, he looks lost at the plate. I mean, every time it seems like he's down 0-2 or down in the count. And we talked about it on the last podcast, but if you're an opposing pitcher and you're pitching to Brett Beatty, it's the easiest game plan in the world. First pitch, just look to throw anything near the strike zone. You're gonna get ahead 0-1. Then 0-2, you pretty much just throw something out of the zone he's gonna chase. And then 0-3, I mean, he's pretty much dead in the water because he'll either take something down the middle or just swing at something. He'll swing and miss something over the plate. And then, I mean, Jesse Winker, I thought he's been fine the majority of the season so far. He's had a couple games here and there where he's looked shaky. The biggest thing, though, and we saw it in the last game of the series, Stalling Marte he's not a good DH. He's not. You're not getting any power from that position. He can't play the field, and most of the time when you go up there, you're lucky if he's going to make contact. Sure, did he have a decent game in the second game of the series? Yeah, sure. He drove in, I think, what was it, 1 or 2 runs, but pretty much, I mean, he's looking like a skinny Vogelback right now. There's just too many times where he's taking pitches over the plate for strikes, and it's just as a guy $20 million coming off your bench as a DH, it's not valuable. I mean, obviously the Tyrone Taylor and Jose series, they are what they are. They're defensive first outfielders. If you're gonna get anything out of them offensively, it's like pretty much you take that. And then Hayden Sanger and Luis Torrens. Overall, I mean, for what you expect from them, I mean, they've been solid. I know Luis Torrens, I don't think he played at all during the series, apart from coming in the first game as a pinch hitting opportunity, and that he came in later in the game for defense. But he's been pretty good to start the series, as we've been pretty good to start the season, as we've been talking about over the last few episodes. And then, I mean, Hayden Sanger, I got to give credit to him. I mean, this is a guy that wasn't expected to make the major league roster until Francisco Alvarez went down with his injury. But He's stepped up, and in the few games that he's played, I mean, he's made a few good defensive plays, and then he's had a couple good hits and a couple good ABs here and there. I mean, he's looked a lot better than Brett Beatty, even though that's pretty much a low bar. But I mean, yeah, that first game just more of the same, like we were saying. And then I mean, Kodai Senga, he looked a lot better than his first start in Miami. And I mean, I think the biggest thing for me with Senga was his fastball looked a lot better in the first in the second game that just passed. He was using a lot more. He used it about he threw it about 26 times, got 13 swings, 2 whiffs on that. Forkball, I thought it looked solid. Definitely wasn't as good as it was the first time around in Miami, but I think that's just more credit to the fact that the Marlins hitters, kind of learned a little bit more from it, and we're leaning off on, and we're taking it a bit more. But overall, I mean, and also with the fact that Senga's still in his 75, 80 pitch count, I thought for the fact that I think he went around 5 innings. I thought for that fact Senga looked good, and then like you said, the bullpen also came in and looked good as well. With Danny Young was decent. Budo then came in, and then obviously Stanek came in to finish the job. So yeah, I mean, you want to see a lot more from the offense, but again, pitching was solid, and a good first win to start off that series.
Yeah, it just like when you look at the 1 for 10 with runners in scoring position, still it's like against the Marlins too. You want to see more there. You really want to see more, especially with how they were able to get their starter out early, get to that bullpen that's not that great, and they just couldn't get done. But transitioning the game too, in terms of that, the offense did actually explode and go off in that game. So Clay Holmes on the mound got into a lot of trouble in the first inning, allowing a single there that scored 2 runs to make it 2-0 for Miami. But Lindor would respond with a leadoff home run. Unfortunately, the rest of the offense did not respond in that inning. But fast forward a little bit over into the third inning, Juan Soto would get a single, and Alonso would drive him in with a double to tie the game up at 2. And Clay Holmes really settled down. There was even an inning, the fourth inning, that was where he struck out the side, looking really effective. And then you get to that fifth inning where Hayden Senger gets a single, and then a 2-out rally from the Mets as Pete Alonso would walk, and Nimmo would get a big hit, making it 4-2. Marte had a single to make it 6-2. The Marlins would respond with a run, with a couple of runs the following inning, get it a ground out from Liam Hicks, which made it 6-3. Derek Hill would hit a home run to make it 6-5, which was really unfortunate because Clay Holmes, he has got, I hate to say it because it sounds like I'm making excuses for the guy, but he really has got so unlucky because this bullpen has been so good this year. And the one time they're not is when he leaves runners on base. And the wind definitely carried that ball out a little bit from Brazoban there, allowing that home run to Hill. But the Mets did respond yet again. The sixth inning, a lot of poor defense from the Marlins definitely helped out in this one. But after Juan Soto was intentionally walked, Pete Alonso with that base clearing double, you pretty much knew the game was done then. Lindor would have his sacrifice fly. And from there, it was pretty much just an easy win, kick your feet up type win. The Mets offense finally giving runs. Again, you could still argue left a lot to be desired because 3 for 14 with runners in scoring position. They could have even potentially gave more. Clay Holmes, it was nice to see him settle down from the struggle with the shaky start rather. And then the bullpen outside of Brazoban was definitely really good in that game. I love seeing from Clay Holmes though that outing, him not utilizing the sinker as much because we've talked about it so much off air and even on some of these shows where I am not in love with the way his sinker has been to start the season. And he definitely did not utilize it last start as much as he did in the first 2 starts. I feel like he was definitely using more of his fastball. He was using the sweeper as well, a very decent amount. It was nice to see him mix his pitches a little bit better. It sucks that the first inning went the way it did because maybe you're talking about an outing where he goes 6 innings and, with the 10 strikeouts, it looks better. Just again, he's kind of got really unfortunate with these outings, and the velo was down in that one too. I don't know if you could correlate that to the fact that it was fucking freezing that day because everyone's velo was down that day, to be honest with you. But yeah, overall, very nice to see that the pitching was the way that it was yet again outside of Brazaban, and Clay Holmes still looked fine again, just getting unlucky. The offense, good, but again, you could argue left a lot to be desired still.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with Clay Holmes, and there were and this was something that we stated before, like, there was obviously gonna be an adjustment period with Clay Holmes, but, I mean, so far, it's only 3 starts, but like you were saying with the fact that and I pointed this out, and we both did on the car ride home, but he really did go away from his sinker because the start of that game, the first 2 innings, they weren't pretty. I mean, he was giving up base hits, he was walking a lot of guys. He obviously walked 2 guys, in that first inning, and really the only pitch he was locating and was able to get any types of swings and misses on were his fastball. And then pretty much after the second inning, when he went away from his sinker, you start to see, the fastball is still there. He was still generating a ton of swings and misses, and then you start to see the cutter start to look more on point. The sweeper start to look more on point. The kick change looked a lot better this start, and then also what was the other pitch? The slider as well. The slider looked good as well, and yeah, just to back that up with the fact that he really went away from his sinker as more of the game went on, because I have it pulled up right here on Savant through the first 2 innings of that start against Miami. Clay Holmes threw 10 sinkers. 7 of those sinkers were either balls or were hits put in play. Then through the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth inning, he threw the sinker 5 times. All of them were either strikes or foul balls. So pretty much, so like we were saying, he went away from this sinker, and pretty much his repertoire looked a lot better, and looked a lot cleaner as well. And this was something that we talked about, before the season started, and because a lot of the times when you watch Clay Holmes last year with the Yankees, and when he really got into trouble was when he couldn't locate his sinker. But the thing that we talked about before the season was now that he added the cutter, the four seamer, and the kick change to his repertoire, now that allows him, just in case if the sinker's not on point, and like we brought up, like, we haven't liked this sinker a lot this year so far, but now that the fact that if his sinker's not on point, he could now move away and rely more on those pitches that are going to work, like whether it's the kick change, the cutter, or the four seamer. And he's really made that big adjustment, because if you compare that to his first start in Houston, where again, I don't think the sinker was terrible in that first game in Houston, but I just think that he didn't really locate it the greatest. And I mean, you can really see the difference, because in that first start against Houston, he threw the sinker about 44 times. Compare that to the last start against the Marlins, where he only threw it 15 times. So it's a good sign that that was only his third start, but to see that he's making that much of an adjustment so far in terms of how he's using his repertoire, and how he's utilizing his pitches and sequencing, I think that's a really good sign. And listen, I get it. When you look at the baseline numbers for Clay Holmes in that start, 5 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 4 earned runs, 3 walks, 10 strikeouts, what you like. But overall, it's not the quote unquote nicest stat line to have. But he did get a bit unlucky, because if you actually look at the FIP and the expected FIP, 0.91 FIP and an expected 2.81 FIP. So, like we were saying, and I brought this up on the car ride home, like, sure, the baseline stats weren't the nicest and the greatest, but when you actually looked at that game and how overall he pitched a lot better than what the overall stat line showed. And again, that's what the FIP and the expected FIPs are, and that's what the expected FIP was saying. But then, yeah, overall, the offense, I agree with you. They still could have drove in a bit more, but overall, it was nice to see, the offense explode for once. And I know, what was his name for the Marlins was on the mound. Connor Gillespie, he was on the mound. He really couldn't locate early, and then credit to the Mets, because they were working a lot of counts early in that game. Eventually, they were able to get him out early, and then like we were saying, the Marlins bullpen is not great, so you really want to get to that bullpen and expose them. And then when that pretty much happened, the offense pretty much teed off. Like we were saying, Lindor had that big leadoff home run to cut it to a 2-1 game, and then really you saw it. I mean, after that, bottom of the second, nothing happened. But then the third inning, you have Soto who gets on base. Pete Alonso, who again continues his hot start to the season, drives them in. And then pretty much after that, you have the big fifth inning where, Pete's hitting a bases clearing double. Nimmo also has a bases clearing double. Marte, or what was it? Or it was either Marte or Lindor, but I'm pretty sure they had a sacrifice fly. Marte, as I said before, he drove in 2 runs with a single. So, and then pretty much like we were also saying, the bullpen came in. Didn't love to see Brosman give up the home run there to make it a 6-5 game, but overall I thought he was decent. And like you said, the win definitely did carry it out a bit. AJ Minter came in, he looked solid again. I like this cutter. Danny Young then comes in, was what you expect from Danny Young. Glad that he didn't, give us a heart attack there. He was able to get through that inning. And then Reed Garrett comes in. He only threw about 12, 13 pitches, but again, his stuff looked really good. And yeah, overall, a really nice game to wrap up that win and then wrap up the series win as well.
Yeah, because the last game unfortunately just was it was horrendous. Like we're not even gonna sugarcoat it here. It was brutal. Tyler McGill, who has been really great all season, got into so much trouble early. Just and it's annoying because this is another thing where if he was just dialed in early, it really could have changed the outlook of his outing. Granted, it wouldn't have mattered because either way, this team uh, did nothing offensively, which we'll talk about. But he allows two 4 pitch walks back to back, settles in, gets the 2 strikeouts. Dane Myers gets that single, and you think, well, this isn't going to go well. But then he gets that strikeout on Conine, and you're thinking, all right, good. Then, really, as this outing went along, you saw what began to be the story of the Tyler McGill outing, where he was getting the first 2 outs, and then he just couldn't get that third batter out at all and just continued to have to work. It happened pretty much every single inning. And then in that 5th inning, he ended up allowing a single to Kyle Stowers. Then there was that fielder's choice. Matt Mervis gets a single to make it 1-0. Kranick comes in. He unfortunately ended up allowing a single after getting the first 2 outs, which made it 2-0. But McGill's pitch count that inning was like in the high 80s too, which was just gross. But I'm not even gonna kill him, McGill, with the Jonah Bride one because Brett Beatty, he can't play defense. Brett Beatty can't play defense. That was all Brett Beatty making a horrendous throw over the shortstop. It's just we'll get into Beatty. We'll get into it. I'm not going to go there yet, but they could have avoided this inning without any damage, which is what's really unfortunate about all of this. It wouldn't have mattered in again the grand scheme of things, but just in the moment, it sucks because of that. This offense, though, got nothing going. And then when you thought maybe they did, like Lindor getting a single, Juan Soto hitting into a double play. Unfortunately, Alonso gets a leadoff single, nothing to follow. But, the pitching was great until Edwin Diaz came in and he just did not have it at all. Walking the first batter, throwing a wild pitch, allowing that single to Jonah Bride. Then the home run to Mervis really told you they weren't winning the game. And we thought maybe we saw the best catch of our lives on Tyrone Taylor getting robbed in that second game. Well, Pete Alonso flew out to end the game to Dane Myers, and he said, "Hold my beer," as he just goes crashing into the damn wall out in center field. The Marlins, again, weird because there was a lot of defensive miscues, but then they made plays like that. Their outfielders were just on point, I guess. But yeah, just no traffic on the bases. Max Mayer, he's a good pitcher, but to let him have a no hitter through like 5 innings was just inexcusable. The offense, I don't understand. I should say I don't understand because they scored 10 runs the prior game, but I was not a fan of Jesse Winker not being in the game the next day. How are you splitting the platoon time between Marte and Winker if Winker's not out there against a right-handed pitcher there? And I don't get why he didn't pitch hit at any point in this game for like Taylor, Senger, Beatty, literally anyone. I don't understand it at all. I'm at a point where I will give them the series against Sacramento because the offense has to produce there. Like if they can't produce in a minor league ballpark, then we really have a lot of concerns to bring up. But I'm at the point where if they don't, you have to switch the lineup at that point. You just have to because it can't just be what it is with the top of the order. And Mark Vientos hitting 6 is the dumbest thing because he's drawing walks now, and it does not matter because Brett Beatty's hitting behind him, and Brett Beatty fucking sucks. I'm sorry, he's terrible, and it's at a point where They really need to just do what we've been saying for weeks now. Put Vientos in the 2 hole, move Soto down to 3, put Alonso in the cleanup spot. I get Alonso's off to a great start right now, but it does not matter if the rest of the lineup isn't going right now. Put Nimmo in the 5 hole, let the platoon DH situation work out in the 6 hole, and then whatever the bottom of the order is what it is at that on that particular day. But there needs to be some sort of change here because the fact that they struggled offensively against this Marlins squad is again outside of the second game, which some of it is the Marlins defense, but still like the fact that they're struggling against this Marlins squad is definitely concerning. If they can't get it together in a minor league ballpark starting tonight, then we have really big concerns.
Yeah, the biggest problem for me with that lineup in that final game was I didn't understand why you're putting Marte in the 5 hole and Vientos in the 6 hole because we talked about it like in the last couple series where Vientos was really struggling and we brought up like you know, he needs protection, and Brett Beatty is he's not even protection. I mean, he's basically a cone out there. He's an automatic out every time he steps up to at bat. And now it's like pretty much now since Vientos has looked a lot better coming up now for his at bats, where he's actually drawing walks, like you mentioned, like I talked about, like he's actually working. He's working counts. He's making the pitchers he's making the opposing pitchers have difficult ABs where he's taking close pitches, he's fouling off pitches, he's staying in every AB, and he's making hard contact now, and now every time that he gets on base, I mean, pretty much like I brought up in that final game, I'm like every time Vientos comes up to at bat, just give him the four fingers because Brett Baty's just going to come up there and have a ground ball double play to force quick 2 outs or to get out of the inning. So I mean, even like if you move to the 5 hole, like sure is Marte, the better protection. Like sure, even though it's not that much of an upgrade right now because Marte is just. I get that he had the 2 hits or the 1 hit in the second game of that series where he drove in a couple runs, but Marte really hasn't been good to start off this season either. But yeah, it just makes no sense because especially like if you're gonna get guys like Soto, Lindor, Pete, Nimmo up when they're at bat and then they get on base, and then Marte's gonna be up there again, pretty much again, that's gonna be an automatic out. But if you've got like Vientos who's looking better right now at the plate, yeah, there's a better chance that you're gonna drive in runs. I mean, listen, I'm still a fan of him, moving him up to the 2 hole because I think, if you move up to the 2 hole and you have a guy like Soda behind him as, at that point, that's real good protection. So if you put him there in that 2 hole, he's going to get more pitches to hit. You're going to get more guys on base. You're going to have a better opportunity to get guys. You're going to get guys up there to produce more runs and get more RBIs. But I mean, like we were saying, the biggest factor right now is the fact that the bottom of the lineup is just it's a black hole because you either have Beatty or Acuna platooning at second base, and the problem is more Brett Beatty because again, like Acuna is not producing right now at the plate, but at least he's giving you speed on base. He's giving you base running skills. He's giving you defense. Brett Beatty is just like I brought up at the start of the episode. He's a mess all around on the field. He can't field. He can't hit. He can't run. He's basically just taking up a roster spot just because I don't know for charity reasons. I don't know. He's got me wanting. He's got me asking for Jeff McNeil back. So right there, you could tell right away that that's not working well. And then again, you have the DH platoon. I don't know why, and I agree with you. I don't know why Winker isn't playing more when so far through the start of the season he looks like the better guy up at the plate. He's hitting more for power. He's drawing walks. He's getting on base. So and especially like we were saying, like every time a righty's up there, Winker's the lefty at bat, and I get you don't want to have him, face lefty, even though he got that big hit in the second game of the against the Blue Jays. But again, I don't know why the reason that you had Marte playing back-to-back games to finish off that Marlins series. And then, like I was saying before with the catching position, I mean, until Francisco Alvarez is back, you're basically just asking for whatever you can get out of the catching position. And like I said, to be fair, Luis Torrens and Hayden Sanger have been decent so far. So I really can't complain anything about that. And then the center field spot, I mean, like we were saying, Siri and Taylor, they're defensive first center fielders or defensive first outfielders. So whatever you can get out of them offensively, anything. And I know Siri has to be a lot better. I know he's drawn a couple walks here and there, but overall, I really haven't seen the power from him, and that's really one of the big reasons why David Stearns brought him in here is not only because of the fielding, but he can, hit homers here and there, but we really haven't seen it so far from him. So, I mean, yeah, like the top of the order, like we were saying, they've started to find their groove in this homestand, and hopefully that continues as now they head out to Sacramento and in a minor league ballpark. But the bottom of that lineup is just currently it's a black hole, and you know you hope that they could find something about themselves in a minor league ballpark, but I think this is just more that we're gonna have to wait until reinforcements come back. I know McNeil and Francisco Alvarez have started, rehab assignments down there in Port St. Lucie, so hopefully they'll get back soon, and then pretty much the rest of the time we're gonna have to wait probably until the trade deadline for more reinforcements.
I was gonna say that, like, at this rate, if this is the trend that's gonna continue, which it looks like it's going to, even though we're 12 games in, so maybe it's not fair to say this, but it's definitely getting to a point where, the talk could change from them needing an ace to them needing to spend the assets to get help offensively because right now, I mean, like at least Shaw Mania and Frankie Montas coming back are like some really good serviceable options there in Mania's case especially. But like with this offense, like Jeff McNeil coming back, does that excite anyone? Maybe depending who you are, if you still are living in 2019, I guess, but and maybe if you're drinking the Kool-Aid on what he showed in the 2 weeks before he got hurt last year, but I just again, it's getting to a point where I'm starting to think that that could be the trend that it's going towards, where they're going to have to get more reinforcements offensively and use their assets there versus the pitching. But again, I'm not going to sit here and declare that 12 games into the season, but it's just something definitely to keep of note. The other thing to keep of note is what we've talked about for weeks, what we talked about in the offseason, what we continue to talk about. The constant here is Eric Chavez. Like there's no plate approach with these guys jumping on the first pitch with guys on base and not just absolutely hitting the ever living piss out of it, swinging on 3-0 counts, not having a good approach with two strikes, not having a good approach in 2-0 counts. There's something to be said when it's pretty much the entire lineup that is like that. Like that falls on the hitting coach.
No, yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think probably the most concerning is, because the last couple of starts, the Mets have really faced opposing pitchers where, they don't have crazy velo. I mean, they got shut down by Chris Bass after they couldn't get on him early in the game after, he let up a couple base hits and a couple walks. They did have a bit easier time on Connor Gillespie in that second game, but Max Meyer again. I mean, correct him because he's a good pitcher, but again, not the highest velo. They really weren't working at bats. They really weren't working pitch counts. I mean, a bunch of it's really been inconsistency because there has been some games where they have been actually working counts and doing stuff and having and really making the opposing pitcher work, and then other games where, like you were saying, they're swinging early in counts, they're making light contact, they're hitting way too many ground balls and not enough in the air. I mean, I know the home runs haven't been flying out, and I know you could kind of credit that to maybe the cold air and stuff, and maybe in the summer, a couple of those balls do get out, but really get the plate approach, and again, this is more for the bottom half of the lineup because I think the top of the guys in that lineup you more trust to come through when guys are on base, but yeah, I mean, Eric Chavez is the problem, and like we were saying, just not enough working pitch counts, not enough making the opposing pitch staff work. Because even in that final game, like I said, credit to Max Meyer, but we even said it on the second after the second game, when the Marlins basically used all their bullpen. Get to Max Meyer early, make him throw a lot of pitches early in the game, and get him out of there as soon as possible. Because like we were saying, we knew that after the Marlins used pretty much all their bullpen assets, that they didn't have nothing in there. So if you could get to that Marlins bullpen, and we knew they were gassed, then you could attack them. But I mean, I think what was it through like the sixth inning? Max Meyer had like 50 something pitches. So again, there was no plate approach, there was no game plan on how to attack Max Meyer. And again, that's only Max Meyer. You know, you come up against better pitchers like Paul Skeens, Corbin Burns, you're gonna get shut down easily. So I mean, we talked about it with Eric Chavez before plenty of times. So it sucks to to go around and around in this conversation, but I mean, there has to be a change of hitting coach eventually.
Yeah, it's just like when the plate approach. There's three guys right now that are giving quality at bats pretty much every single time they're up there, and it's the first three guys hitting. Outside of that, like Brandon Nimmo even just isn't giving the same at bats that he typically does. Vientos has been better with it, but it's just like I just can't understand how it's this piss poor what we're seeing from this hitting from the hitting. Like it's really just and I get that, when you look on paper that some of the names aren't flashy, but there's something to be said that it's like this piss poor. Like you're talking negative OPS pluses. You're talking OPSs that would be respectable batting averages, like in Brett Beatty's case, especially. Like his OPS would bear like that wouldn't be an acceptable batting average for Juan Soto, his OPS. Like that's how bad we're talking. Tyro Taylor's OPS would be it's a 300 OPS. Like it's just not good enough. It's just not good enough at all what you're getting. And I don't know how it changes unless again something happens here where in Sacramento where maybe them scoring more runs gives them a jolt of confidence here. If not, that's when I really am gonna like start to hit the panic button a little bit, even if we are only 15 games in at that point. Because if you can't hit in that ballpark, that's just a huge problem to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, just like in terms of the other stuff with that last game, McGill, like we said, just unfortunate because when you look at the baseline, it's not horrific what happened in his outing, but just not enough volume at all. Kranick was fine. Stanek was really good. Brazabon, good rebound. And then Edwin Diaz, like we said in that post game, if he's going to give up runs, just let it be in a game where they weren't going to win anyway. And then Danny Young working for a third straight day, whatever. But the story of that game was the offense. The pitching could have been as bad as it was, and I really wouldn't care because they have shown at least consistency. The offense is really just like the biggest problem out of it all.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So let's get to the chat, see what some of you guys are saying here. There's a series that the Mets at bare minimum should be taking 2 out of 3 of. If you're talking about Sacramento, yeah, we'll preview that one and give our thoughts on that. Is it worse to watch Brett Beatty at bats or Chris Kreider on ice cardio sessions? Brett Beatty at bats because the Mets are actually playing games um that I care about right now. The Rangers are just done and out of it to where I don't really care anymore about Chris Kreider's half-ass efforts. So yeah, that's my answer to that. I don't know if you have a different one.
I got to watch both of them on Wednesday live, so yay. Nah, both, but fuck both of them.
We're in 4. Be happy. Shut up. This sounds familiar. Yes, the old record. Points of the record. Nothing's wrong here. Mets sweeping. Hopefully, he's only 38. There's still time, Matt. I'm assuming you're talking about Marte there. Is it ridiculous to say Beatty is too good for Syracuse, but not good enough for the MLB? I don't even know anymore because the Marlins don't have world beating pitchers out there outside of like Max Mayer and Sandy didn't pitch the series, but obviously him. They don't have a great pitching staff, so I don't know if I could even say that anymore with the Syracuse thing.
Uh,
He's terrible.
No, he's lost, and this is more because I know people are throwing it out there that it's a more of a confidence thing now, but the guy just he's not good. I mean, like I said, he has no plate approach. I know this is something we were saying everything with Eric Chavez, but I mean, like I was saying before, like the plan of attack on Brett Beatty is so easy. because you just gotta throw something near the zone, then go something out of the zone, and then pretty much when you got him 0-2 or when he's down in the count anytime, it's pretty much okay. Here comes the strikeout, or here comes the ground ball at the end of the inning. Like it's so easy to attack Brett Beatty. Like I just don't know. Like I'm at the point where I'm just counting down the days and counting down the games and the at bats till he's gone. And like we're saying, if he goes somewhere else and he finds his game, cool. But it's not going to work here. It just hasn't. He's had 600 plus ABs here. He's had pretty much 3 seasons here. Like it's not going to work here. I'm done with him.
And this was a conversation, and Mets Weekly on their show, they were talking about this. This is a conversation we thought we'd be having in May.
Yeah.
Like, we're 12 games in and we're having this conversation. You would have thought that at the very least right now, like, he would put up like a 500 to 600 OPS, like a 167 average, maybe a home run in there, maybe like one or two extra base hits in there, just something to at least hang your hat on. We're talking about him being just unplayable. Like, there is nothing he is bringing to the table for this team at all. And the more that I'm watching him and Acuna, the more I'm like aggravated that Jose Iglesias wasn't brought back because, and I get that Stearns wanted that faith in the young guys, and you did have to see what you have in these guys, especially Beatty's case, who's 25 years old. Like, he's pushing unk status more than he's pushing new to the league status. So I get having to give him some runway, but like the fact that there's no veteran here to really push these guys to be better is problematic. And you just wish Iglesias was back. I know they brought in Madrigal, but he got hurt. But realistically, if Madrigal was here, like, is he pushing these younger guys to be better? I don't know. Donovan Walton's not really doing that in Syracuse. So I just wish they brought him back in retrospect with all of this. But I also get that they had to see what they had in these guys at the same time. It's just really annoying more than anything.
I mean, you know it's bad for Brett Beatty, and credit to James Shiano who put this out on his Twitter feed. But that second game of the Marlins series, the 11th game of the season, that was the first time Brett Beatty this year had a 2-0 count in the regular season. The first time. And I'm pretty sure he ended up grounding out to end the inning in that same at bat. I mean, you know it's bad when his stats and numbers are so bad that the City Field scoreboard operator has to put up his spring training numbers to just make him
Which
look good.
that's what I tweeted about.
I mean, I just like I'm saying, like I'm sure the kid's a nice kid and everything. Like I'm sure he's a nice guy, but I'm sorry, like this team this year is trying to contend for a World Series. Like Brett Beatty should be nowhere near this roster. To be honest, like even sending him down to AAA, like that's not going to do anything. It's not. I think the Mets should just cut ties with him for good and just let him go somewhere else at this point because, like I was saying, it's not going to work here. It's not.
Yeah, and like I'm seeing the narrative now, obviously, when all of this happens, that like people are talking about how, it's mean that fans are being the way they are with him. This is what it is. Like, we know the deal. It's New York. Like, and it's nothing personal against him. If anything personal is being said, obviously, then, that's where the line's being crossed there. But like, he needs to show something. Like, there is literally nothing here. And to sit here and, pretend and applaud him just because, trying to uplift him, how much is that going to work? Like, people in our section were chanting his name when he was up at the plate at one point. Like, I don't know. It's just to a point where it's nothing against him personally. It's not going to work here. It's not working. It might not work in the majors for him. And, you know, that's fine, but it's infuriating watching him play. And the guy that definitely deserves more blame for this though is Carlos Mendoza, because there is no reason to keep throwing him out there when you have Acuna here, who at least, like we've talked about, brings good defense, and if he does get on base, brings good base running. So Mendoza definitely deserves a lot of the blame here for the fact that Beatty is facing this much criticism and everything early. But and Mendoza's done a lot right. I don't want to make it sound like I'm anti Mendoza here, but it falls on the manager a bit here too that you have another guy here, just play him.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, even just because I'm now looking at Fangraphs, just looking at more of his numbers. I mean, like last year, like we talked about it, like he was hitting the ball way too much on the ground with a 53.6% ground ball rate. Right now, it's at a 62.5% ground ball rate. His fly ball rate went down from last year was 31.8%. This year, 18.8% fly ball rate. Like I'm saying, the guy he doesn't hit anything in the air. Everything's a ground ball, right? And even like I get it because like for some people like the numbers could not look good, but then the expected numbers could show he's getting unlucky. Not even that because right now his average is 111, expecting batting average 157, slugging 148, expecting slugging 192. Like he's not even getting unlucky. He's not even getting unlucky. Like I was saying, like the plate approach is not there, and he's just. I mean, even negative 28 WRC plus. Like I don't know what I mean, even like I agree with like I love Mendy, but I don't see the point of running him out there. Like at least with Acuna, like sure he hasn't been great at the plate either, but like I was saying, like he's gonna offer you really good defense, and if he draws a walk, he gets on base, he offers you the ability to steal a couple of bags. Like Beatty is just like I'm saying, I'm counting down the days till he's gone.
Yeah, it's just like it's just that bad right now with him. It really is. 2022 McNeil was something else. Would die to have him repeat that, but his golfing has caused him the screw swing. Way too many pop ups. I mean, yeah, there's definitely something with that, and apparently the injury was related to golf. I don't know how true that is, so I don't want to. I don't want anyone to quote me on that or uh whatever, but that's just what allegedly is the case. And if that is, then that's even more infuriating there. But yeah, like we said, they're going off to Sacramento now to play the A's. Griffin Canning versus Sears on the mound. That first game results met. I mean David Peterson against a we don't know who's pitching yet for the A's on that day. And then you have Senga versus old friend Luis Severino in that last game. And all I could say with this series is I want 2 out of 3. If I'm going to pick the games that they win, I'm going with results, man, getting the win in the middle. And you know what? I'll say they win tonight. I think they dropped the third game. And we're going to talk about after the second game how they need to just close it out with a sweep. But then, they end up failing to. I'll go with 2 out of 3 in this one just to be on the safer side because I called the sweep last series, didn't work out. All I could say is that, like I've said the entire episode, the offense needs to get going, needs to wake the fuck up. If not, we're gonna definitely be. It's gonna be an interesting episode. The next time we're on here doing this podcast because it then we're gonna have a lot more concerns. This pitching staff, while it's respectable what the A's have right now, like Sears is actually a solid pitcher. Sevy, obviously we know what he could do. You're still playing in that type of ballpark. Just beat the ever living piss out of the baseball. And this lineup for the A's could be sneaky good, but the pitching's been solid for the Mets all season. So let's hope that it just could continue and shut down this good A's lineup.
Yeah, I actually don't know because kind of I I don't know which games they might win actually because I'm kind of a little concerned with Canning and or Peterson this series just because we've seen that there's been a lot of runs being scored in that ballpark and we know Canning has had the home runs issue in the past and we know that Peterson he doesn't strike out a ton of guys. A lot of his outs are a lot of fly balls or ground balls. So I mean, if he does give up a little too much, fly balls, they could result in a couple home runs and result in higher runs being scored in the series. So I'll say they'll take 2 out of 3. I'll say they win. I'll say they lose tonight. I think they win the second game and they win the third game. to take the series 2-1. But I think definitely the two guys, you definitely need to worry about in the opposing lineup for the Amazes. I know Brent Rooker has started off slow far with a 614 OPS, but he's got plenty of power in his bat, and then Lawrence Butler as well, 742 OPS, and Shea Langoliers and both Miguel Andujar have started decently this series, and also watch out for JJ Bleday because hit the grand slam last year of Jose Quintana, so could repeat it again, but I'm definitely excited to see Sevy pitch on Sunday as well. Hopefully, doesn't deal against us. Hopefully, we tack on a couple runs against him. But yeah, just get 2 out of 3 out of this series, and then obviously head off to Minnesota for the next series.
Jacob Wilson's also been off to a very good start too, so that's another guy to keep an eye on. Their sixth overall pick from 2023. So yeah, I mean that lineup sneaky good, honestly, for the most part. And I know some of the numbers might be inflated because of the ballpark, but again, that just kind of is what it is. So we will see. And they also have Yankee legend Miguel Andujar. Forgot about that. Just looking at the roster right now. But yeah, do you have anything else to add before we wrap it up?
Nah, we can wrap it up.
All right. Oh, and the last name, Tyler Soderstrom, the start he's off to. I don't know if you
Yeah.
mentioned him. Holy shit. The 6 home runs he has right now, over 1,000 OPS. That lineup is good. It's a very sneaky good lineup. But that is going to be it for us. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you guys are new to the channel, especially if you're Met fans. Turn on your notifications so you know when we upload or go live on the channel. And we'll see you guys in the next one.